your basket of goods. What's new? Tariffs on cars, clothing, appliances. What's not new? More inflation. The inflation rate stayed the same. The question, are tariffs causing inflation? The answer, no, not yet. Here's why that's so strange and what that looks like graphically. The average tariff rate for all goods imported in this country, according to the Yale Budget Lab, was around 2 to 3% before President Trump's second term began. Then he starts imposing tariffs, and then Liberation Day, big push for reciprocal tariffs, causing that average to spike north of 28%. And then that rate stabilized, a couple trade deals were made, and now it's hovering at about 18% right here. So, given that, what many expected is that as the tariff rate goes up, then inflation would go up. But actually, it stayed basically level, and that's according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. From June to July, it was level at about 2.7%. No change at all. That's the mystery. Economists are puzzled. That's the hard data. Outside of that, all that's left are some theories. Is it that inflation was supposed to drop off that pandemic peak more, and these tariffs are pushing it up to level? Or here's another theory, and it's based on what Barclays economists found. The theory is that the average tariff rate that importers paid was not this, but instead about 9%, and then follows that curve. So inflation stayed the same. So, but what if you take out food and energy prices because gas dropped significantly? That's called core inflation. So that actually ticked up a bit in July from June to just over 3% right here. That's going up. Now, economists usually look at this number to gauge actual inflation because food and energy prices are typically volatile, meaning they fluctuate a lot. So that's going up. But why? Let's isolate some tariff-targeted goods to see if they are the inflation culprits. So you see appliances, clothing, a lot of trade going on there, cars, new cars, toys, many of them come from China, bedding, laundry equipment. If tariffs were to cause inflation, you would most likely see it here. It could appear elsewhere, but to a lesser extent, but definitely here. So what do we see? Not much change for items in these categories. And actually, some deflation for clothes and for appliances year over year. So let's compare these rates to the headline inflation rate, which is about 2.7% right there. So some of these categories are above, but many are below, meaning they are not the items driving inflation for the most part. But the whole story is yet to be told because, for example, what may be happening broadly and is happening in some individual cases is that companies stocked up and say bought a bunch of cars before tariffs set in to dodge the duty. And now they're selling those lower cost cars. So that isn't showing up in the data. It's too early to tell. Now, what we are sure about is that right now, it's primarily the increase of the prices of services that's driving inflation, not traded goods. We'll keep tracking this. Back to you.
Okay, Kevin, thank you very much. Up next, what role has the EU and NATO countries played in advancing peace between Russia and Ukraine? A former U.S. ambassador shared his thoughts. Stay with us for that. Trump and Russia's President Vladimir Putin. Earlier today, I talked with Jim Gilmore, former U.S. ambassador to the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. He's also the former governor of Virginia. Here is that interview. What is at stake today on an international level for this meeting?
Well, first of all, I think I would look at what the two guys are bringing to the table today in the negotiation. President Trump wants to be a peacemaker. That's perfectly clear. He wants to try to get a ceasefire out of this meeting today. But, he's not going to get a ceasefire without giving something up. And the question is, what is Putin trying to do? Well, Putin has been a relentless advocate for what he believes Russia should be doing, which is conquering and destroying Ukraine. I don't believe he's going to surrender any element of that whatsoever. Even if he looked like he did, it would be something that would only be temporary. They are relentlessly intending to destroy Ukraine and add the territory of Ukraine back into Russia. So that's the setting the table of what's going on here today. I would simply counsel the president to keep in mind the long-term consequences of the meeting. If in fact, the meeting doesn't go well, I think there's a danger here that somewhere up the road that we could be legitimating the kind of wrong conquest that is being attempted. And that, of course, would have consequences worldwide, including in the Pacific. Because right now it's perfectly clear that in the Pacific, that Taiwan is a flashpoint also.
What do you think Putin wants? What do you think Putin's conditions are for a deal going into this meeting?
Of course, I'm not an insider, so I don't know. But based upon what I see based on my experience, I think what's bringing this meeting together is President Trump's threat of sanctions. The observation I think we all have is that Russia is actually very frail here. They have a lousy economy. They are a pariah on the world stage. I think that they're not doing well. Furthermore, I think that they have to try to get out of this. They expected there was going to be a quick war. Now, 3 or 4 years later, it's still going on. I think Putin has to get out of this if he possibly can. So I think the one thing he doesn't want to have happen is the sanctions that could be put on by the United States. Meanwhile, the sanctions card is the chief card in the hand of the president. Right now, he has that threat to Russia in his hand that he will impose sanctions. So I think that's one of the motivating reasons why the meeting is even occurring.
Okay, can you talk to us also about, Ukrainian officials have said that they want to end the war in a way that does not reward Russia and doesn't give the Russian military future opportunities to seize more territory from Kyiv. What do you think that deal might look like?
I personally would be surprised if a deal's possible that would grant those kinds of security arrangements for Ukraine. I would remind your viewers that there's already a deal for the security of Ukraine. It was called the Budapest Memorandum of 1994, where the nuclear weapons that Ukraine had were given up and get sent back to Russia at the behest of the United States and Russia, with a guarantee of their territorial integrity of Ukraine. That's been blown completely to pieces by Russia. And I don't believe that a deal for security for Ukraine is possible. I do think that security for Ukraine is possible. They could join the European Union. The European countries, as well as the United States, could lay out what security arrangements they would do in the event of a Russian threat. And that could create some security. But the security is going to have to be based on force, not on some sort of agreement.
How do you feel about a NATO membership for Ukraine? Is this a non-starter in negotiations?
Well, to be honest with you, when I was a United States ambassador and when I visited Ukraine in 2021, the message from the Ukrainians was they thought that their only security would be if they were members of NATO. I, as an individual, was very hesitant to agree with that because they were already in a dangerous situation with Russia, and some of the NATO members didn't want them to be members of NATO. So I think that is the important principle is this. The OSCE principles, and for that matter, the United Nations principles, are that every country has the right to make a treaty or to associate with any country or group of countries it chooses to. Now, that sounds a little quaint, doesn't it? But it's actually the rules of the road in the world today. If you have a deal today that prohibits NATO membership for all time, that blows apart all those kinds of rules. At that point, every country's ability to govern its own future would be put into jeopardy.
So taking a step back, what role do you think the EU and NATO countries have played in trying to advance peace between the two countries?
I think that the principal problem is that they have not been prepared militarily or economically to confront a Russian threat. But they're awake now. You can see what's going on. For example, Finland and Sweden have joined NATO. It's something I never thought would ever happen. Frankly, I thought they were militantly neutral, but they're not now. I read the other day that the Austrians are considering joining NATO, which absolutely blew me away. I, of course, was stationed in Vienna as a diplomat, and I thought that Austria would always be a neutral country. So the things are not really moving strategically in Putin's direction. He probably understands that, and he needs a pause too. And for that reason, maybe a ceasefire might be possible. But he's going to want to extract something from President Trump to give him that thing that he wants most of all, which is a ceasefire.
How sustainable do you think Russia's war on Ukraine is right now? Because you have the U.S. providing weapons to Ukraine, you have other support from other European countries as well, and Russia's Putin is seeing all this, right? And he's looking at his own economy. So what is he thinking?
Well, I think he thinks that he's in a hurry. I think that time is not on Russia's side here because of their bad economy and because of the sanctions that have been put on Russia, and because of the dramatic sanctions that could still be coming if this meeting today doesn't go well. By the way, those secondary sanctions have already been placed on India, a very important ally of the United States in the world conflict that we're in. But they continue to buy Russian oil, which then is converted into money, which goes right into the Russian war machine. So I think that the president's right to put on those sanctions. So what do I think? I think that that Putin would believe that time is not on his side, and what he's doing is grinding his way forward in Ukraine on the battlefield. But this meeting is just another element of the conflict that's underway. And I believe Putin will be trying to advance Russia's interest. That's going to be his goal, no matter what it looks like. That's what is going to be his goal. I think he has his eye on the destruction of Ukraine. Now, President Trump, I think, just needs to understand this, and I think he does, and negotiate from that basis.
Okay, I'll just ask you one more thing, Ambassador. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I was just talking to a guest earlier on this topic, and he's a military guy, right? So he's saying right now is probably the best chance that we have in getting a peace agreement, a peace deal, whatever, between Russia and Ukraine. He's saying if we don't get one in the next 30 days or so, perhaps we won't have another chance. What is your assessment on the overall assessment? Is right now the best chance?
Well, I think that's kind of a tough question. I think that that military and diplomatic geopolitics is on a continuum, not a moment. It would seem to me that I don't know whether this is a good moment or not. Putin has advanced as militarily as he can. He's attacked more civilians. He's stepped up his attacks before this meeting in order to try to give himself some leverage. That doesn't look like a guy that's ready to quit. But on the other hand, we don't really know their position. We don't really know the position of either person. All we know is the objectives. And that means that if you don't address those objectives, I'm not sure that this is a good time or there will be a good time. Other than the fact that if this meeting fails, I would hope that the Europeans, and for that matter, the Americans, step up and continue to support the Ukrainians who are fighting nobly for their own independence and sovereignty and liberty.
Well, Ambassador, I guess we won't have to wait too long for this meeting to find out what happens. But thank you very much for your time today.
My pleasure to talk to your listeners.
To stop you. So God's allowing these trials in your life for a purpose. It's been said Christians are a lot like tea bags. You don't know what they're made of until you put them in hot water. Maybe you're in the hot water of temptation right now, or you're going through a big trial. But someone else would say, well, I'm not going through any trials. I haven't had any hardships, and I can't remember the last time I was tempted. Oh, you just admitted you're basically worthless. Ever hear the expression, you don't need to kick a dead horse? See, the devil doesn't need to waste his time with an immobilized, compromised Christian. Instead, he's going to focus his energies and his attacks on those who are a threat to the kingdom. But here's the good news. Jesus said the gates of hell will not prevail against us. Have you ever wondered what that means? See, think of it this way. Have you ever seen one of those movies where an army is storming a castle and they close the gate. And as the army gets closer, they pour boiling oil over the side, right? But then what does the army do? They pull out their battering ram and they push it to the gate. And finally the gate breaks and they go inside. So when Jesus says the gates of hell will not prevail against you, we're the invading army. We've got the battering ram of the gospel, and we're breaking through the gates, and we're going to break through those gates, and those gates will not prevail against us because we're on the winning side with the message of Jesus Christ. That's what that means.